Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory and this is Africa 54. In the eyes of the U.S. and its allies, Boko Haram and Ansarut are now terrorist groups, a move that effectively legitimizes Nigeria's military offensive in the northeast. But analysts say it's a gamble, meaning there could be major payoffs and high risks. For an in-depth look at the militant group, we're joined by Africa 54's Ndimyake, Mwakalyelye, and Ndimmy.
Well, thank you, Vincent. The terrorist designation by the U.S. cuts off Boko Haram and Ansarut from American financial institutions and allows banks to freeze their assets held here in the U.S. The militant group is believed to be fighting for an Islamist state in northern Nigeria, although much about its membership, leadership and structure remains unclear. VOA's Anne Look has our report on what we know so far about Boko Haram.
Propaganda videos like this one have been some of the public's only windows into the shadowy militant sect known as Boko Haram. Sect leader Abubakar Shekau boasts about attacks and threatens enemies ranging from the Nigerian government and the military to Christians and the United States. People nickname the sect Boko Haram after the preaching of its founder, Muhammad Yusuf. The name means Western education is forbidden in the local Hausa language. The sect wants to establish an Islamic state in the north. Its war with the Nigerian state has killed thousands of people since the insurgency began in 2009. Nigeria launched a massive land and air offensive against Boko Haram in the northeast in May. Analysts say previous attempts to crack down on the sect, like the one in 2009 that killed founder Yusuf, have backfired. The sect re-emerged in 2010, more violent than ever. Militants have attacked police and military installations, schools, churches, mosques, and the UN headquarters in the capital, Abuja. There have been raids, suicide bombings, and drive-by shootings. Security experts say Boko Haram militants have trained with al-Qaeda-linked groups in Africa, but have remained focused on Nigeria. Experts say what we call Boko Haram is actually several distinct factions. Moderates have split off, with some wanting dialogue with the government, while others have formed new militant groups, like Ansarut, which took issue with the sect's killing of Muslims. Nigeria's military says it has Boko Haram on the run, but despite the military's reports of success, attacks have continued, not all of them claimed by Boko Haram. Anne Look, VOA News, Dakar.
Now, a U.S. Congressional Subcommittee on Africa, Global Human Rights and International Organizations held a hearing on the threat posed by Boko Haram on Capitol Hill here in Washington Wednesday. Part of the hearing included the stunning testimony from two natives of Nigeria, and one of them recounted surviving a horrific attack at the hands of Boko Haram. And today we are pleased to have both gentlemen as our guests here on Africa 54. Emmanuel Ogebe is a lawyer and activist, and also with us is Habila Adamu of Yobe State, who was a victim of the militant group's brutality. And I'd like to say to both of you, thank you so much for obliging us this time.
Thank you.
I'll start off with you, Mr. Ogebe. You initiated and you've been pushing for this designation for Boko Haram. Why and what will it change, and who does it involve when we hear that the leadership and the membership is so vaguely known?
Yes, the problem with genocide in general is delayed recognition and delayed response. That's the lesson of Nazi Germany, that's the lesson of Rwanda and Biafra. And so we're happy that the US has finally come to recognize this pre-genocide that has been taking place in northern Nigeria. The impact of the FTO designation now is that there will be terror financing tracing. And usually when the US does the FTO designation, you have the UN and other countries coming in as well to do that. It is essential that the finances are tracked and stopped, because Boko Haram is now the second deadliest terror group in the world after the Taliban.
And what about some of the, we pointed to that earlier in our introduction, that it has maybe larger negative implications, not only for Nigeria, but also surrounding areas, in the sense that drones could be invoked, and that also this Islamist group can become even more radicalized, bringing in other terrorist groups?
Well, let me clear once and for all that the impact of FTO designation is not to allow drones to come in. The impact primarily is to trace terror financing. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say quickly that, we've seen the successful model in Kenya. How the U.S. went in to try and capture the Al-Shabaab elements mm-hmm. who attacked the mall, okay? That's not what FTO designation is going to do in Nigeria. It doesn't mean U.S. troops are coming in. But these people have access to shoulder-fired missiles. They have access to equipment that is not produced in Africa.
Right,
so we want to find out how is it getting in there. That's what this does.
I see. Mm-hmm. I want to turn to you now, Mr. Adamu. You're the face of the brutality of Boko Haram. How did you feel sharing your story yesterday, or rather Wednesday, before the committee?
Yeah, I give thanks to God because it's a free privilege for me to stand in the presence of the Congress to testify and to tell the world how these people are attacking and how these people are killing Christians in northern part of Nigeria.
You're lucky to be alive in a sense. You were shot in the head, the bullet went through, and I can see because I'm looking at you from that angle. Yeah. You had quite extensive wounds.
Yeah, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. I ask myself, why me alive at this moment? Mm-hmm. But I understand that God keep me alive in order to cry, to call for peace in northern Nigeria and Nigeria entirely. I realize that it is a call from God that I will be alive in order to speak mm-hmm. on behalf of all persecuted Christians, the widows, the orphans of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. That's the privilege that I see that it is.
How did you get into the path of Boko Haram for you to have been shot and targeted the way you were?
Yeah. The Boko Harams are following village to village, town to town, house to house, in order to attack. They have attacked me in my own home around 11 p.m. in the night.
Did they say something to you about why they were there?
Yeah. They have discussed about for me to deny my faith in order to be safe. Mm-hmm. If I agreed, they will keep me alive. But if I say no, that's why they have fired me.
So this is where you come in again, Mr. Ogebe, mm-hmm. because everybody wants to know, what does Boko Haram want? We keep hearing how they're anti-Western education. We keep hearing how they're anti-Christian or anti-this and that. What is it that at the end of the day, a designation like this will help to at least highlight and bring attention to what it is that they want?
Yes, let me say this, that, starting from Nazi Germany, where they started burning the books, the world has learned a lesson that anybody who comes out and wants to destroy the civilization we have mm-hmm. should not be treated with kid gloves. Boko Haram wants to establish an Islamic theocracy over a country that has more than 80 million non-Muslims. Now, that is a recipe for disaster. Let me point out that Boko Haram has attacked and killed citizens of over 15 countries. Mm-hmm. They killed people from Kenya, from Cameroon, from Mali, Britain, France, Italy. So any idea that this is a local issue mm-hmm. is completely misguided. American citizens were in the UN building that was bombed by Boko Haram.
Here's a question for you. What will America do that Nigeria cannot? Nigeria, your president, has declared a war against this group too.
Yes, but in spite of the state of emergency, they're continuing to perpetrate huge massacres. In September alone, while I was in Nigeria, they killed over 500 people. Now, here's some of the U.S. capacity that could help build Nigerian troop response. Mm-hmm. They have satellite coverage that can show where these people are in the mountain ranges of Borno State. they have the ability to share intelligence. The US, like I said, had a successful model with the Kenyan army in the Somali operation. We're not asking for US military presence because the Nigerian army is capable and has helped different countries in Africa. But we need technical assistance so that they're able to do this the right way without violating human rights.
Mr. Adamu, the last word from you. What do you see coming out of all this? What's the recourse for you and so many victims?
Yeah, what we are pleading for is for the government to come in order to stop this innocent blood shedding, because it's too much. It's much. We are calling for the government of America, the government of Nigeria, in order to have dialogue to bring the ends of this blood shedding in Nigeria.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and thank you for your advocacy. And we're very honored that both Mr. Ogebe and Mr. Adamu joined us here on Africa 54. Of course, again, Emmanuel Ogebe and Habila Adamu, they joined us here on Africa 54.